Have you ever felt like you are wasting your potential? As if there is something inside you, powerful, unique, untamed, that has never been fully revealed. Perhaps you look around and see people seemingly winning at life, while you, silently, carry an uncomfortable certainty. You are capable of much more than you have been living. You know there is a more vibrant, more authentic, more creative version of yourself. But it never manifests, always postponed, always buried under obligations, expectations, and empty routines. What if I told you that the problem is not your laziness, nor your supposed lack of discipline? What if the real reason you are stuck in a mediocre life is something much deeper and much more disturbing? Alan Watts said that we live under a collective hallucination, a carefully constructed illusion by society, culture, education, that taught you to measure your worth by the height of the ladder you are climbing. The ladder of success, the ladder of productivity, the ladder of social approval. But there's a problem. No one told you that perhaps this ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. You have been conditioned to pursue goals that were never yours, to work in jobs you don't love, to follow lifestyles that drain your soul. And all of this in the name of an invisible promise. One day, you will find fulfillment. When you have more money, when you get promoted, when you buy a house, when you finally have free time. But that day never comes. Do you know why? Because it doesn't exist. Watts compared life to a song. No one listens to a symphony waiting for the last note. The purpose of music is the dance, the melody, the present moment. But you have been taught to live as if life were a race, an endless marathon towards a non-existent prize. And in the midst of this race, you forgot to live. You think you are wasting your potential because you haven't arrived there yet. But perhaps the true waste is being so obsessed with the there that you have never lived the here. You are not lacking. You are misaligned. Because the world taught you to force an identity that was never yours and to ignore the most important voice you have, your own. Today, in this video, we will explore why you feel disconnected, suffocated, and out of place, even while trying to do everything right. We will confront the brutal truth revealed by Alan Watts, that mediocrity is not failing to be extraordinary. It is never discovering who you really are. And most importantly, you will learn how to start, today, reconnecting with your authentic nature and stop living the life that others expect of you, to finally live the life that only you can live. If you have the constant feeling of living half a life, this video is your call to wake up. Because time is passing. And the question that Alan Watts would ask you now is simple, yet devastating. Are you living your own life, or just playing a role in the theater of mediocrity? If you are ready to tear up that script, keep watching, because what comes next could change everything. You have been taught to believe that realizing your potential means achieving more, climbing higher, being more productive, more recognized, more admired, and above all, more successful in the eyes of others. This idea is sold as an absolute truth. You need to achieve something grand to prove that your life was worth it. But what no one tells you, and what Alan Watts ruthlessly exposed, is that perhaps what you are calling potential is in fact a sham. You are climbing a ladder. Step by step, you work hard. You do what is expected. You accumulate titles, responsibilities, visible achievements. But there is a silent problem that almost no one dares to face. This ladder may not even be leaning against the right wall. You might reach the top and discover, too late, that you spent your entire life chasing something that never belonged to you. Watts said that we live imprisoned by inherited ideas about what it means to be successful, what it means to be someone, what it means to win in life. But these ideas did not originate from within you. They were imposed by well-meaning parents, by schools that shaped you to obey, by a culture that values appearance over essence. You were shaped to perform, not to live. And here is the cruelest detail. You can be incredibly talented, disciplined, and successful by society's standards, and still be completely wasting your true potential, because what you achieve in the outside world has no value if it is disconnected from who you are inside. That is not success. That is exhaustion disguised as achievement. How many times have you ignored your intuition to follow the right path? How many passions have you shelved for fear of seeming irresponsible? How many times have you asked yourself, what if I dropped everything? But then you quickly silenced yourself, remembering what they expect from you. This internal silence is the clearest symptom that you are not living. You are acting. Watts saw mediocrity not as a failure to be grand, but as the result of a wasted life, trying to fit into someone else's molds. Most of the people you admire from the outside are empty on the inside, not for lack of effort, but for lack of connection to their true nature. And here is the truth that no one wants to face. You can spend your entire life chasing goals that were programmed into you, and never discover what you truly came here to do. Your unique vocation, your specific genius, your contribution that no one else can offer. And that is indeed a waste of potential. But if you want to break this cycle, there is a brutally necessary first step. Stop living in the future. Because as long as you keep waiting for the right moment to change, this false ladder will continue to take you exactly to the wrong place. In the next part, we will explore the most silent, most accepted, and most destructive addiction of the modern mind, the disease of procrastination. Because perhaps your potential is not being wasted due to lack of effort, but due to excess waiting. If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. You live waiting for the right moment, the ideal hour, the point at which everything will finally be aligned for you to start truly living. But Alan Watts called this one of the most dangerous diseases of modern humanity, the disease of postponement. You tell yourself that you will start living when you have more money, when you get that job, when you finish your master's degree, when the kids grow up, when the political situation improves, when. But what you may not have realized yet is that this when is a mirage that recedes every time you get closer. The mind, conditioned by Western culture, has been trained to see life as a journey with a fixed destination, as if each day were a means to a greater end, and the now were just a stage to reach the true moment of fulfillment. But Alan Watts imploded this narrative with a devastating question. What if there is no destination? What if the point is exactly this moment now? Most people live as if life is always about to begin, as if the present were just a rehearsal. They accumulate years in waiting mode, swallowing frustration with the promise that, down the line, a reward will come. But that reward never arrives, because the future does not exist. It is a mental construct, an illusion that keeps you obedient, patient, distracted, and far from your own life. Watts said, "Life is not a journey with an end. It is like music or dance. Its purpose is not to reach the end, but to fully experience each note, each step." But you have been programmed to sacrifice the present in the name of an idealized tomorrow. And so, you trade your real life for a fantasy that never materializes. Think about this with brutal honesty. How many things have you postponed just this year, believing that the ideal moment would come? How many important decisions have you delayed waiting to feel more ready? And what if you discovered that this moment will never come? That it solely depends on your willingness to act now, even with fear, even with doubts. This is the most invisible and accepted addiction in society: to postpone, to wait, to plan for a tomorrow that never arrives. And this constant postponement, disguised as responsibility, prudence, or maturity, is the most efficient way to slowly kill your authenticity without you realizing it. You waste your potential not because you are incapable, but because you are always waiting for an ideal scenario that does not exist outside your imagination. Time is passing. And if you do not start truly living today, when exactly do you intend to start? But maybe you think, okay, I understand that I am postponing, but what if I don't even know what I really want? What if I have been conditioned for so long that I can no longer distinguish what my real desire is from what is just external influence? That is a powerful question, and absolutely necessary. And that is exactly what we will talk about in the next part. How to discover what you would do if money were not a concern. Because until you answer that with brutal courage, you will continue living a life designed to please others, and not yourself. Are you ready to confront this truth? Stop for a moment and face this question with all the seriousness it demands. What would you do with your life if money were not a concern? This is one of the most radical and transformative questions ever posed by Alan Watts. Simple, direct, but absolutely devastating to the conditioned ego. Because when you answer it honestly, everything you thought was important begins to crumble. Career, status, degrees, 5-year goals, all of it reveals itself for what it really is. External constructs trying to fill the void left by a life lacking authenticity. Watts didn't ask this question as a cheap self-help exercise. He knew that behind our most logical and sensible choices lie, in fact, deep fears. Fear of judgment, fear of poverty, fear of disappointing parents, fear of looking naive, and the most paralyzing of all, the fear of discovering that you have desires that society does not approve of. Most people never allow themselves to answer this question honestly, because doing so may imply facing the fact that you are wasting your one life trying to fit into expectations that were never yours. And perhaps the cruelest part, you may be sabotaging yourself every day because, on some level, you believe you are not allowed to live what you truly want. But here's the point. Your answer to this question reveals where your true potential lies. Not the potential measured by performance metrics, but that which pulses in the soul. The one that doesn't need to be validated by anyone. The one that would make you wake up with eagerness, not anxiety. And perhaps you say, but I can't just drop everything to do what I love. Yes, that's true. The system we live in does not allow for radical transitions without risks. But Watts never said to act irresponsibly. He said to stop living a lie, and to start, even if in small steps, directing your life towards your truth. You can start now. Set aside an hour just for yourself. Take paper and pen and write, if I didn't need money, how would I live my days? Without censorship, without logic, just truth. Because there, in this simple exercise, you will find clues about what truly moves you, and about what the world may be missing, because you are afraid to allow yourself. And here's the most brutal truth. As long as you continue trying to adapt your soul to the demands of the system, you will continue living in mediocrity, even if on the outside it seems like you are winning. But there is something even deeper behind this. Because even when you discover what you want, even when you get closer to your truth, there is still a much more subtle and invisible obstacle. The roles you are playing without realizing it. In the next part, we will expose one of the most sophisticated prisons that keeps you stuck, and that Alan Watts masterfully unmasked, the illusion of social roles. Because perhaps you are not living, you are just performing. Let's now reveal who is really behind the mask. Do you think you are living your life, making conscious decisions, making authentic choices? But what if I told you that much of what you call you is actually a performance, a sequence of roles you have learned to play so well that you no longer distinguish where the mask ends and your essence begins. Alan Watts said that most people spend their entire lives playing a character that was imposed and not chosen. You may be living as the responsible professional, the exemplary daughter, the determined entrepreneur, the reliable partner, the serious adult. Roles that, at first glance, seem admirable. But they are just that, roles. And the more you identify with them, the further you drift away from who you really are. The child you once were knew how to play, create, question, express, until an entire system began to shape your behavior to fit what was considered acceptable. And then you learned to smile even when you wanted to cry, to say yes when you wanted to scream no, to stay silent to avoid bothering others, to please in order to survive. And so, little by little, you transformed into a domesticated version of yourself. But here's the cruelest detail. The more you suppress your authenticity to fit into social roles, the more you lose touch with your inner voice. You start to confuse your function with your identity. And when that happens, even success becomes a prison. Because no matter how much you achieve, if it was the character who won, it wasn't you. Watts warned us, living trapped in a role is like being on stage and forgetting that you are acting. The play goes on, the applause comes, but the actor gets lost in the character, and the soul falls silent. This is the invisible mediocrity, a comfortable, respectable, even enviable life, but deeply disconnected from essence. So I ask you now with brutal honesty, what roles are you playing? What do you do just to be accepted, to avoid rejection, to maintain appearances? And more importantly, what part of you is being silenced every day for these roles to sustain themselves? Perhaps you can't abandon all the roles at once, and that's okay. But you can start to put small cracks in the mask. A gesture of authenticity, a bold decision, a no where there was once submission, a yes where there was once fear. Because each act of truth is a blow against the script of mediocrity. But even as you begin this process of unmasking, something deeper is revealed. Because it's not just about abandoning the character. It's about learning a new way of being in the world. A radically different way of living. No longer trying to get there, but simply being here. In the next part, we will break the greatest conditioning of the modern mind, the obsession with progress, goals, and destination, and dive into the most liberating principle of all, the art of abandoning getting there and embracing being here. Because true potential is not something to be achieved in the future. It is something you can only live now. If what you're hearing resonates with you, you'll find real value in my ebooks. Beyond the Shadow breaks down Jung's core ideas, while Dialogues with the Unconscious gives you a 30-day path to apply them in your life. Both are linked in the pinned comment. You have been trained to live in order to arrive. From an early age, you were taught that life is a straight line, and that success lies at the farthest point of that line. Study to pass the year. Pass the year to get into college. Get into college to land a good job. Work hard to get promoted. Save to retire. And only then, perhaps, you will have arrived. But Alan Watts shattered this illusion with brutal clarity. There is no there to arrive at. There never was. Because as soon as you reach one goal, another appears on the horizon. As soon as you achieve something, a new demand arises. The there moves like a carrot dangling in front of a donkey, eternally out of reach. And in this endless cycle, you never truly live. You are always going somewhere, but never arriving. Because deep down, the system doesn't want you to arrive. It wants you to keep moving, obedient, productive, anxious. Watts said this is the tragedy of modernity. We confuse life with a race, but life is not a race. Life is a dance. And the purpose of the dance is not to get somewhere. It is to dance. The point of the music is not the last note. It is the sound of each moment. When you live only for the destination, you kill the poetry of the journey. Stop for a moment and look at your life today. How do you measure your worth? By how much you have achieved? By how much is left to reach? By comparison with others? By goals, results, numbers? That is not living. That is accounting. And what's warned us, you may be completely successful on the outside and completely dead on the inside. If your life is a sequence of goals and not of full moments, you are on the wrong ladder. It doesn't matter how high you climb. You need to reverse the paradigm. Instead of asking, how much am I progressing? Start asking, how present am I? How alive do I feel? How authentic am I being in this moment, here, now? Because true fulfillment is not in reaching the top. It is in being whole in every step. And don't be fooled. This requires courage. Courage to stop running when everyone around you is in a frenzy. Courage to be present in a world that glorifies the future. Courage to be who you are, even when that doesn't put you in any spotlight. But there is an even deeper dimension to be understood here. A revelation that completely changes your view of yourself. What's said that, as long as you believe you are an isolated ego trying to win in a hostile world, you will live in constant conflict. But the truth is much more radical. You are not a separate entity trying to achieve something out there. You are the universe itself, experiencing itself here and now. And that is what we will talk about in the next part. Because perhaps the problem is not what you are doing with your life, but who you believe you are. Get ready for the deepest turnaround of all, the discovery that you are the universe in human form. And your mission is to express your uniqueness, not compete with it. You have spent your entire life believing that you are a somebody, an isolated individual, separate from the world, struggling to prove your worth. Everything you do is motivated by this invisible, yet deeply rooted belief that you need to become someone better, stronger, more capable, more admirable. But Alan Watts revealed a devastating truth for the ego. You are not an ego trying to win in the world. You are the universe itself, experiencing itself through a temporary and unique form, you. Your potential is not something that needs to be built or forced. It is not a ladder to be climbed, nor a prize to be won. Your true potential is the full expression of who you already are. And for that to happen, you need to remember something that the system wants you to forget. You are not separate from life. You are life. Watts said, "You did not come into this world. You came out of the world. Just as the apple comes from the apple tree, you are the fruit of the universe itself, a momentary manifestation of cosmic intelligence. And as such, your function is not to compare, compete, or prove your worth. Your function is to be fully you in all your irreplaceable uniqueness. But what happens in practice? You compare yourself all the time. You look at others as if they are a reference for what you should be doing, feeling, being. And each comparison is a poison, because the universe does not repeat itself. There is no one who has your same combination of experiences, intuitions, talents, and sensitivities. Trying to mold yourself to what others are is the greatest waste of life you can commit. Your task here is not to be better than anyone. It is to be so completely you that your mere existence becomes a contribution. The world needs unique truths, not well-made copies. Your authenticity, when lived without fear, is more powerful than any achievement based on external expectations. And here is the final point, and the most important. When you stop trying to control, force, or improve yourself to fit in, something extraordinary happens. Creativity flows, clarity emerges. Life ceases to be a battle and transforms into a dance. It is what the Taoists call Wu Wei, effortless action. Not because you do nothing, but because you have finally stopped fighting against your own nature. Mediocrity ends the moment you have the courage to stop living as others commanded and start living as you were made to live. The key is not to be more, do more, achieve more. The key is to let go of the script, abandon the mask, and live from the inside out. When that happens, life aligns. Not because it became easy, but because it finally became real. Now, I want to invite you to do something powerful. Write in the comments, what part of you have you hidden out of fear of judgment? What truth are you ready to start living, even if on a small scale? Write this as a commitment to yourself. When you declare your authenticity, even in a few words, the process of transformation has already begun. And if this video has provoked you, touched you, or made you look at your life in a different way, don't stop here. The next video is an essential part of this journey. Keep watching. What comes next is important, because this is not just a series of videos. It is the beginning of the end of your mediocrity and the rebirth of your authenticity. I'll see you there.